Experts have long known about the link between diabetes and eating disorders, but there are still big gaps in public awareness and support for those affected. Unlike other eating disorders, diabulimia is not an accepted medical or psychiatric diagnosis, and a leading specialist says it's an unhelpful term. But that's left sufferers searching for answers, including a young New South Wales woman.
I found out I had diabetes when I was 8 years old. To be honest, I thought it was pretty cool because my dad had it, so it was a kind of like a bonding thing. I was really good with it up until my teenage years. I knew from probably the age 13 what it could do to me if I withheld my insulin, but having the personality disorder, it kind of made me know, but there was nothing I could do to control myself from doing it. There was no way I could stop. I knew what I was doing to myself, but the voice in my head was louder than my own. When I was 16, people started telling me, "Oh my God, you're so beautiful." It got to my head and I realised people thought I was so beautiful because I was thin. So in my mind that became my obsession. It was obsessive compulsion, like there was nothing I could do.
The link between diabetes and eating disorders is really important. It's well documented in research and it can be very high risk. If you have diabetes, you have a 2 to 3-fold risk of also experiencing an eating disorder. Eating disorders are still misunderstood. They are mental illnesses with physical consequences. They're not life choices. They're actual illnesses that people encounter, that they have increased genetic and biological risk for, and this is often something that we're not fully aware of yet in society.
When I realised that she was not doing her insulin correctly, that I did worry that she was using it to control her weight by keeping her sugars high. I reached out to everybody, GPs, diabetic educators, endocrinologists, let them all know that I thought that this was what she was doing and why. It wasn't until I just by chance caught an episode of Dr. Phil, and it was about diabulimia, and it had a name, and it was something that was rife amongst type 1 diabetic, mostly females. I was like, wow, it's a thing, it's not just her.
Dr. Beth Shelton is an expert in the field and says the term diabulimia gives the false impression that the only eating disorder experienced by diabetics is bulimia nervosa.
People probably in general know a lot less about eating disorders than they do about diabetes, because sometimes there's a stigma about a mental illness with physical complications, and that's an eating disorder. More stigma to that than there is around a physical illness, which is diabetes.
She says eating disorders need to be understood as mental illnesses with physical consequences.
She had a heart attack at 17 years old, and any time I got near a medical professional, I'd say, this is what she's doing, and this is what it's called. And I was just basically fobbed off with, look, teenagers struggle with managing diabetes, and I said, it's not, it's more than that.
I can hide it very well. I can come across as this really confident, happy, person that people want to be around. But behind closed doors, I live a completely different world.
The mental illness makes changes in the person's brain and produces really distressing and painful thoughts and feelings and behaviours which are really hard to change without proper support and treatment.
I did try to fool everybody into thinking I was better when I wasn't. From the time I was like 15 years old, I would just lie and lie and lie, tell them, no, I'm not doing that. I would constantly tell my mum, like, you're an idiot, you don't know what you're talking about, like, I'm fine. The damage was there, but I had youth on my side, so I'd bounce back quickly. But my mum, I put her through absolute hell. She knew what I was doing to myself, and I constantly just pretended it was nothing.
I knew. She wouldn't admit it to me, but I knew.
There are societal pressures that add to risk for eating disorders for every one of us. And it's certainly true that once you become mentally ill with an eating disorder, it's very difficult to manage body acceptance. and that is part of the psychopathology of having an eating disorder. But something we can do as a society that would be really helpful is to just create a culture in which we are more accepting of all of the different and wonderful shapes and sizes and bodies that people come in, that humans are.
I just never liked myself. I still don't like myself now, but I just know that it's more important that I'm alive. I've done all those things. I've hung out with people I idolise, you know, I've got all the rich designer things, I've got everything, but if I could trade it all to go back and have my health and, you know, be around to see my sister's first child grow up, I would do that without any hesitation.